when we speak of this success, what I find when I talk with our team, and I even look at myself, how do you define success? How does your organization define success? Quite often we speak of success, but we each define success perhaps quite differently. UCLA said you will be successful if you reduce this budget. And they wanted me to reduce the budget. I believe it was $2 million a year. And they wanted to raise morale of the employees, and they wanted patient satisfaction to go up, and they wanted customer satisfaction to increase. And they said the cafeteria isn't supporting itself. Everyone's going off campus to eat. And they define success, and so I wrote that in the book, my first letter to the staff, saying this is what we have to do. And then how do we define success as individuals? And the first thing I would say to that young 14 or 15-year-old, how do you define success? Is success merely getting money? If success for you is merely getting money, let me send you to a counselor who can tell you how to make lots of money. If success for you is to have a family and not have it split apart, such as our family. My mother was married 5 times. My brother's been married 4 times. I said, we're going to end this nonsense. I married Judy when she was 16. I was 17. This past October was 50 years. That was success for me, for the family to rear children in a stable home with a father and mother there who loved them, and have grandchildren who knew their grandparents and knew their grandparents loved them and supported them. That was a part of the success. Now, the same principles that I wrote about in the book are the principles that also work in our lives. They're interchangeable. Whatever it takes for a business to be successful is what it takes for a human being to be successful. Whatever it takes to hold a business together for 100, 150 years or whatever is the same principles it takes for human beings to be able to stay together. Businesses go through difficult times, ups and downs, depressions, all kinds of things. Families do. And if we learn those principles and understand them, are we perfect? No. I made a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. And my wife could have divorced me 1,000 times over, and vice versa. But you learn what works in business and what works in life, and you apply those principles, those success factors. And it requires leadership. Leadership. Leadership is about influence. In fact, I had a couple of grandchildren influence me to do things I didn't even want to do. I wanted to sit and read a good book. And they exercise leadership, and I'm out in the sandlot with them on the playground, and they're swinging and playing and kicking sand and all of that, and I enjoyed it too, but it wasn't what I had in mind. How do you define success for your team? I said to our leadership team, our managers and our supervisors, this is how you can be successful. One of the first stories I said to our team when I gathered them together, and many of you may have heard this, I asked them, I said, who is the most important person in this department? Now, understand, just because I have PhD after my name, that's not who I am, it's what I do. It's what I do, it's not who I am. It does not define me. What I know you can put in a symbol. But if all of us together, what we know individually, and we bring it together, it can be very, very powerful. Very powerful. I said in that first meeting, called all of the employees who could get away, there were a few who had to serve, and I said, who is the most important person in this department? And everybody was really quiet. See, they heard all the rumors. Oh, they sent this guy. He was in the Marine Corps. He's going to be tough. I didn't learn to be tough on people in the Marine Corps. I learned teamwork. I didn't yell at my troops. I didn't curse at them. Well, you're going to be in tough situations. You're going to curse at somebody and treat them. You ever heard that term fragging? You know where that came from. Why would officers get fragged? Somebody threw a grenade over in the foxhole with them because of the way they were treated. You don't treat people. I learned teamwork. So I said to them, who's the most important person? And they were all just quiet. I said, I asked you a question. Someone said, well, of course, sir, you're the most important person. I said, first mistake, not. Then someone else said, well, if you're not the most important person, why do you make the most? I said, that's a very good question. I said, listen, understand something. As a human being, I am no more important than any other human being. Someone delivered a newspaper to our home this morning. I'm no more important than that person. But how long does it take to train someone to deliver a newspaper? 3 days, a week at the most. We're compensated by the difficulty it is in replacing us. The more difficult it is to replace us, to hire our salaries, but not as a human being. How long does it take to be trained to be a director? How much education? How much experience? How much self-discipline? How long does it take? And I'm compensated because of that, but not as my worth as a human being. All the managers and those who had these big egos and supervisors who liked to boss people around, I could see them sinking a little bit in their seats, you know. Then I said, okay, what's the most important organ in the body? And someone said the brain is. And someone else said, well, no, it's the heart. And I said, what happens if the liver shuts down? What if the kidneys fail? What if the lungs collapse? Every organ is vital. Every member of this department is significant. And any of you managers sitting here in the front row and supervisors who do not support this value behaviorally, you have no place on this team. I'm going to set the top 2 people free because of the way they treated employees. They'd done it so long. One had been there 27 years, the other, I believe it was 18 years. I cut them loose because of their attitudes. In a community, when we treat every member as though they are significant, whether they're picking up our trash in the street or anything else, they will start to behave differently. They will behave differently if they're treated. Children will behave differently if they're treated as though they're significant and they're special and they're contributing to the family. And you show them ways that they can contribute to the family.